And we're back with some more Arizona Coyotes franchise mode in FHM 10. And in this one, we have the start of the year 6 offseason heading into year number 7, I believe it is. Coming off yet another disappointing loss in the playoffs. But as we take a look at the team history, year number 1, obviously we didn't make the playoffs. That was a bit rough. Year number 2, we made the playoffs out in the second round. First round exit, no playoffs, first round exit. It's been pretty rough here in Arizona so far. We're starting to get to the point where a lot of these players are going to start costing more and more money. And to be honest, we're already at 82.6 million in salary cap. If we don't move some players here this offseason, it is no exaggeration to say that we are going to be in cap hell, especially when you consider the fact we only have 19 players on our roster right now. We have 6 defensemen and 11 forwards, and we would probably go over the cap ceiling just to bring up, let's say, Jason Foyston. I mean, yeah, we're literally right there, 83.385. I mean, that's basically right at the cap ceiling. And when you take a look at who we have to re-sign this upcoming offseason, you have Lascelles, Veilleux, Gavin, Denoyer, and Furcus, all very important players on this team. And when you consider what Lascelles has done over his career so far, he had one kind of not so good year, but every other year, he's been fantastic. And he wants 15.27 million for 3 years. That's a lot. Yeah, that's twice, basically twice the amount of what he's currently making. We are literally going to be in cap hell if we don't move players of significance. And then not to mention, you know, Furcus, he wants 7.4. That's roughly 1.3 more than what he's currently making. Gavin, he wants 6.7. That is roughly 1.4 more than what he's currently making. Veilleux, he wants 6.2. That is roughly 1.2 more than what he's currently making. And then Denoyer, currently making 2.3, wants 5.4, over 3 million more than what he's currently making. I mean, of course, we did retain some of Denoyer's salary when we traded for him, so I suppose that's why he's asking for a lot more money. But you see what I mean? That's an additional roughly 15 or 16 million in salary cap. That's not even including what they're currently making. So assuming we don't move anybody out, we're going to be at like 98 million in salary cap. And this is with the bare minimum roster. This is bare minimum. That's not even including any depth or anything. And we still have players left unsigned like Lundqvist, Tuarila, Metcalf, Berkoyev, Keenan Fox as well. And we only have 2 goaltenders. If either of these 2 goes down, then we're going to need to sign a backup goaltender or pick one off waivers like we did last year. So my point is that making trades here is inevitable. We are going to have to make some trades right here and now. So the first trade we'll be making to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are in need of a right defenseman, and we'll be trading them Caden Price. Obviously, he's a left defenseman, but still, he's a defenseman nonetheless, and he can play right D if he needs to. Going along with him will be a 2035 4th and a 2035 6th in exchange for Andrew McNeil, who is indeed a right defenseman, but he is far less talented than Caden Price. So the main purpose in this move purely is a cap dump, because we are not going to be able to afford Caden Price going into next season, or maybe not even this season. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to keep him. He performed very well defensively last season, but if we want to retain William Lascelles, we're going to need to make some sacrifices here. So what we're also going to do for Andrew McNeil is cut his salary to 30%, or retain his salary by 30% rather, because we're going to need every little penny that we can get here. And then we'll be getting a 3rd back as well. So Caden Price, a 4th and a 6th for Andrew McNeil at 30% of his salary retained, and a 3rd round pick for this upcoming draft. Offer trade, we'll see what they say. And the next trade we're going to be making is to the Carolina Hurricanes. They're in need of a center, and it just so happens that we have a center that we are not going to be re-signing in Nikolai Berkoyev. He's asking for way too much, as we see if we go back to the depth chart and try to offer him a contract. He wants 4.2 for 4 years. We're not affording that. And if we take a look at his stats, he has been so underwhelming the past 3 years. 4 points, 13 points, 7 points. Not good defensively. He's just been very, very underwhelming, especially for a 3-star ability, right? He's a 3-star ability, 3.5-star potential. He's just not living up to it. So we're going to be moving on from him. And who we're also going to be moving on from is Reese Hamilton. We brought him in a trade, I believe, during the trade deadline a couple seasons ago, or maybe like partway through the season. Yeah, it was like partway through the season there. Once again, another situation of a player that I wish I could keep, but we can't, because he's making 5.5 for 2 years. He's great puck handling, great passing, great positionally, great defensive awareness. I wish I could keep him, but unfortunately there are more important players that we need to hold on to. And once again, we're going to have to make some massive cuts here to the salary cap. So he'll be going on there as well. We're also going to be giving up the rights to Metcalf, who, I mean, he played 40 games for us in a depth player role, 5 points. Not too much of an impact. He's 25 years of age, so I don't really mind giving him up. And then we're also going to be giving up our 2035 third. This could be all that in exchange for one player, Braden Scuderi, who is 24 years of age, 4-year contract, $2 million. So a very good budget player, team-friendly contract, 3-star ability nonetheless. So you got him for a long time, and he looks like he could simulate pretty well. He had 19 points in 52 games played last year and a 60 grade, which means I'm assuming that he had a good defensive grade because of his lack of points. Like there's no way his grade would be that high with only 19 points as a forward. So I'm assuming he was good defensively, and it makes sense. He has a decent defensive category. He's got 16 defensive read, 15 positioning, 14 checking, 14 hitting. He can certainly hold his own defensively, 17 screening, so he's good in a grinder role, and we could certainly use a player like him for our top 9. So we're gonna also retain 50% of his salary, and I believe that will be it. So I know it looks like a lot. It looks like a lot going the other way, but you have to keep in mind Metcalf, once again, not a player I was going to re-sign anyway, not exactly impactful. Bakoyev, once again, not exactly impactful, and I think we gave him more than enough opportunities to prove himself, but he just did not. I mean, he had, what was that? He had 145 games in the NHL and only 24 points. For a player that is a supposed 3-star ability, he certainly did not simulate like it. And I think the biggest loss here is Reese Hamilton. I would love to hold on to him if I can, once again, but it's just not in the cards. So if we're trading all of this in exchange for some long-term stability at forward, I think I will definitely take that. So we're going to offer that trade. And one more trade that we're going to be making, and probably the biggest trade, is going to be to the Vancouver Canucks. They need wingers, and it just so happens that we have a surplus of wingers. We have Christensen, we have Furcus, we have Michkov, Gavin, who else? Eriksson. So going to the Vancouver Canucks, first off will be the rights to Pekka Tuorila. He's 23 years of age already, hasn't really proven himself much. He had 20 games in the NHL last year, 5 points. He didn't simulate too well during that time, and his defensive ratings are a bit all over the place. He's great positionally and great defensive read, but hitting and checking are a little too low for my liking as a defenseman. His strength's only at 11. That's not really great, and it's not like he's going to be great offensively based off what we've seen from him so far, or even based off his offensive ratings. His highest offensive rating is puck handling at 18, which is great. Passing's at 15, which is average. Offensive read at 15, which is average. I don't think he'll be anything too special offensively, is what I'm saying. I think the part that I like about him the most is his mental ratings, but I don't know if that makes up for his other weaknesses here. Also going to the other way is going to be Matvei Michkov. He's 30 years of age at this point, making almost $6 million on his 2-year deal. And you know what? He's put up some pretty good seasons for us. 66 points in year number 1, 54, 54, 69, 48, 60. He's been pretty consistent. And during the playoffs, let's see what he's done during the playoffs. He had 8 points in 11 games played during our first run. 1 point and then 1 point and then 4 points. So has he been that impactful as of late? Not really. Then again, most of our players haven't had too much success during the playoffs lately. So I suppose I can't single him out for that. But still, I think it's time to move on from Matvei Michkov. We could definitely afford to give up his cap hit in order to make some room for Lassell. That's the main thing I'm concerned about right now, is locking up William Lassell long term. And what we are also going to be giving up is our first round pick for this year and our second round pick for this year. Our first round pick is going to be top 10 protected, so we are getting a good player back here. We're actually getting 2 good players back, so don't worry, this is going to be more than worth it, I think anyway. The first player we're going to be getting back is Evan Moore, 21-year-old defenseman on a minor league deal, so that's why I think he is really valuable here. Only 2-star ability currently, but he does have the 3-star potential. His defensive ratings are pretty good overall. Positioning at 15, hitting at 16, checking at 15, defensive read at 16. Strength is at 17, so that's what I like about him over Pekka Tuorila. Mental ratings aren't bad overall. Determination up there at 16. Offensive ratings, I mean, we're not going to really be getting him for offense, more getting him for stability on the back end, but he does have 17 passing there, so that certainly helps. And another thing I like about him on his personality, the bigger the game, the better he performs. His personality overall is very good. It is worth noting that he's never played in the NHL before, so we don't exactly know what we're getting with Moore, but based on what his attributes are looking like here, and based on the fact that he's making a minimum salary, I think I'm definitely willing to take a chance on him. And who is also going to be coming back the other way is Roger McQueen, 28 years of age, 3-star ability, solid ratings all around, 17 positioning, like that. Good at screening, good determination, good team player. Good puck handling at 17 as well. So he's just a very well-rounded player. Personality is pretty good. He's 6'5", physical presence there. He uses his body. 96 hits last season. Doesn't look like he's going to be much of a point scorer. He only had 25 points last season and a 57 grade. But of course, you know what we got to do here is we're going to be retaining 50% of his cap. We have to. There's no other reason to be trading for a player that expensive. And he's got a 3-year deal. So we'll be getting at 2.3 for the next 3 years. And I think that's honestly the most valuable thing for us right now is just getting very cheap players through retaining salary, because it's not like we're going to be able to get that much through the draft, unfortunately, from what we've seen so far out of it. So it'll be Michkov, the rights to Tuarila, a top 10 protected first, and a second for this season in exchange for Evan Moore and Roger McQueen at 50% of his salary retained. Offer trade. Okay, so that's trades done with. Now we have to go into free agency, and we're going to sign a defenseman. He's going to be very cheap, don't worry. So it's not like, you know, we're going to be signing anyone too expensive here. We are going to be signing, where is he? Here he is, Dryden Allen. He is 27 years of age, 2-star ability. Liking his physical ratings there, 17 strength, 16 balance, good mental ratings as well, 17 team players, 14 determination. Offensive ratings are okay. I mean, he's not going to be anything special, but he'll be serviceable. And defensive ratings, stick checking at 17, positioning at 15, checking at 14, defensive read at 15. So once again, just another player who we can hopefully rely upon to be solid in the top 6 role, along with Evan Moore. He hasn't played in the NHL for a bit, but when he did, he had a 66 grade in 13 games played. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to transfer that over to his time here with the Arizona Coyotes. So we are going to have an offer for, okay, there he is, offer contract. He wants 1.27 for the next 2 years. We can definitely do that. In fact, I'll give him 1.5 just to make sure he signs as for a response, and we will submit that to him. And I'm going to wait until all those trades go through before we offer an extension to Lascelles, but I do want to get that done as soon as possible. So with all that done, let's simulate and see what happens. All right, the Vancouver Canucks have accepted our offer of Matvei Michkov, a first, a second, and the rights to Pekka Tuarila in exchange for Evan Moore and Roger McQueen. We're going to wait on that, however. We're just going to make sure all the trades go through first. All right, Carolina has accepted our offer. Now let's see what happens with Columbus. Yep, they have accepted our offer as well. And it looks like we're also the top offer currently for Dryden Allen, so I don't think anyone else will be scooping them up here. So before we go into the draft lottery, let's accept and complete all these trades. So going to the Columbus Blue Jackets will be Caden Price, a 4th and a 6th for this year's draft, in exchange for Andrew McNeil at 30% of his salary retained and a 3rd round pick. Complete trade. And going to the Carolina Hurricanes will be Reese Hamilton, a 3rd round pick for this year's draft, the rights to Nikolai Berkoyev and Les Metcalf in exchange for Braden Scuderi at 50% of his salary retained. Complete trade. And to the Vancouver Canucks will be Matvei Michkov, a 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick, and the rights to Pekka Tuarila in exchange for Evan Moore and Roger McQueen at 50% of his salary retained. Complete trade. There it is. So 3 big moves all in one day there. And our team salary cap is now at $72 million. So we are certainly in a much better spot now for the salary cap going into next season. And I think with that, we can now offer William Lascelles an extension. I'm going to try to get him as low as I can because we're going to need to save all the money we can here. And we'll see what he thinks about $14 million to start out. Of course, I don't want to make him too angry here, so I'm not going to play around too much. We'll go 14.2. Okay, that works for me. 14.2. He likes it. That is over 1 million less than what he originally asked for, so I will certainly take it. Submit offer to him. All right, now we can go to the draft lottery. And of course, we're not in it this year, but we're going to see the draft order anyway. At number 18, you have Winnipeg, followed by Dallas, Vegas, Carolina, Edmonton, San Jose, New Jersey, Chicago, Detroit, New York, the Islanders to be specific, then the Rangers, Colorado, so Anaheim moves up, Florida, Nashville, Ottawa, Toronto, and at number 1 is the Anaheim Ducks, followed by Tampa Bay at number 2. And there you go. William Lascelles has agreed to his extension to keep him here for another 3 years. That is what you like to see. And now we head into the draft. We only have 2 picks this year, a 3rd from Columbus and our own 5th. So we are really, really ignoring the draft lately. But you know what? We're going all in here. We have to have some playoff success. So let's see what happens leading up to our 3rd round pick. And we have 1.5 star potentials left. I don't think there's really much point in looking. I'll take a look at some of the top guys, but yeah, most of these guys are going to be projects. I think the most interesting guy here I've seen so far is Emil Janssen. I mean, he's better than most of the players I've seen so far. 14 offensive read, 13 positioning, 15 determination. I mean, sure, why not? Fast forwarding to the 5th round, where there are 3 1.5-star potentials left. Why not? Yevgeny Lebedev, welcome to the Arizona Coyotes, and that'll be it for this year's draft. And there you go. Dryden Allen has signed his contract, and we have 22 players on the roster now. So that is, let's just see, that is 7 defensemen, 2 goaltenders, and 13 forwards. And since we have a little bit of flexibility now with the cap, at least for this year, I would like to go after a 1-year contract kind of player who can just help out for this year and then probably release him afterward. But with the way the things are right now, especially with Lascelles getting that huge raise up to $14.2 million, there are going to need to be some players that are cut. Probably Denoyer as well. But I would like to see if there's any players that want 1-year contracts out of free agency here that we could just use for this year. I think we're going to sign Jake O'Brien here. He's pretty solid depth. Only wants 2 years, 1.1. I'm going to see if I can get him at a 1-year contract just to make sure. Very well-rounded player, 16 strength, 16 checking, 15 positioning, 16 puck handling, 16 team players, 16 leadership. He's very well-rounded in basically every category. So he should be a solid depth player. Once again, I'm going to see if I can get him at 1-year deal just to make sure we have as much flexibility as possible going into the season after this one. So submit that offer to him. We're also going to be signing a 3rd-string goaltender here, Melker Thalen, 30 years of age. Doesn't look too impressive on paper. However, when you take a look at his career stats, he's been a very good simulator, particularly last year with that .925 save percentage in 10 games played. The year before, not so much, but that was in a starting goaltender role. He had .895 with Florida. But when he was younger, when he was with Utah, he put up a .912, a .923. So he has a history of putting up good performances in the NHL. It's just that he doesn't really do well in a starting role, it seems. And Florida at that point might have been weak, right? Like, let's take a look at their team history. Yeah, they've been pretty bad the past 3 years, so it wouldn't surprise me that the reason for his failures was simply because Florida was a bad team. So we'll be giving him a contract, $850,000 for 2 years. Sounds good to me. Someone I think I would like to move on from, if possible, is Andrew LaCroix. I know he's cheap, 1.9 for 2 years at 30 years of age at 3-star ability, but I really do not like his physical ratings. He's very, very low in most of those. Balance at 10, speed at 10. Strength is only at 12. All of his other ratings are solid, but I think that physical category is definitely holding him back and might even be holding the team back to an extent. I've been keeping him around because he's cheap, but if we could find a replacement for him that's just as cheap, then I think that might be something I want to pursue. Someone I find pretty interesting here is Vilmer Alriksson. He is 30 years of age, 6'6", big guy, screening at 18, pretty good physical categories, strength's at 16, balance at 15, so he's strong where LaCroix is weak, positioning's at 15, checking's at 14, and we take a look at his career stats. He's been in the AHL for a lot of the time over the past 2 seasons. However, he also has history of being really good in the NHL, 61 points with Vancouver during the 2030-31 season. And when we take a look at his expanded stats, he can get his hits up there to the 150 range. Last year, of course, he had 79, but that was in the AHL in, how many games was that? 54. So he's a hitter. He's a hitter for sure. So I think he would be a really good replacement for Andrew LaCroix, assuming he doesn't want too much. And the only reason I think he won't want too much is because he's been in the AHL for the past 2 seasons. So let's see what he wants. I mean, that's not bad. That's about as much as Andrew LaCroix is making. LaCroix is making 1.9. If I could go 2.15 for 3 years, I think I would do this. I mean, despite the fact that he's been in the AHL for the past couple of seasons, he's proven that he can play in the NHL. And I think he would be solid in the role that LaCroix is currently filling. So we'll go 2.15 for 2 years. I'm going to try 2 years. See what he says about that. Okay, it looks like he really wants that 3 years. All right, I'll go 2.1 for 3 years. There you go. Submit offer. There you go. Alriksson has signed a contract with us, so he is locked up for the next 3 years. And then O'Brien and Thalen have also signed with us. So for right now, I'll move Thalen to the AHL because we just signed him as a 3rd stringer. And I will move Foyston to the AHL as well. So there you go. I think this is going to be our lineup going into year number 7. We have Lascelles and Coco in goal. On defense, you have Sather, Salminen, Rudolph, Veilleux, Allen, McNeil, and more. And at forward, you have Christensen, Stenberg, Furcus, Gavin, Fedorov, LaCroix, Denoyer, Kuzma, Eriksson, Scuderi, McQueen, Cardona, Alriksson, and O'Brien. So I think with that, we'll simulate up to the Hall of Fame inductions. And into the Hockey Hall of Fame this year is Philip Forsberg, John Carlson, Roman Josi, and Victor Hedman. All right, so I think I'm going to sign Eric Lundqvist. We still have his rights, and we can afford him too. He only wants 2.4, but I'm only going to give him 1 year just to make absolutely sure that we can still have some flexibility going into next offseason. So I'll give him $3 million for 1 year. See what he says about that. He really wants that 3 years. I'll go a little bit more, 3.2 for 1 year. Oh, man. 3.4. Okay, 3.4 for 1 year. I will take it. We can still afford that. So he is back on the roster, and I think I'm going to send Evan Moore down. He wasn't too impressive in preseason, and I think he could just use a little bit more seasoning. He's definitely the first injury call-up, though. Definitely the first injury call-up. So we'll send him down to Tucson for right now. I think we'll leave things off here, and the next one we will go through the Year 7 simulation with your retooled Arizona Coyotes.